U.S. Open right around the corner. With that being said, let's look at the favorites to hold up the trophy at the end of this year's tournament. What's going on, everybody? It's John Eric Polai, and in today's video, we're looking at the favorites on the men's side of things in this year's U.S. Open. It should be a fun tournament. A lot of guys in contention here. Let's see the favorites to win this year's championship. And we're going to get started with a guy that's been in the headlines a lot recently. That is Jannik Sinner. Sinner, of course, wins the Cincinnati Open, and all of a sudden, all his momentum's on his side. He's the world number one. He won on the hard courts early in the year at the Australian Open, and then he tests positive for steroids. Now, the steroid test came earlier in the year, back in March, testing positive at Indian Wells on March 10th. Then in a non-competition test on March 18th, it was ruled that the steroid was for dermatological purposes and it was a very low level. He's not suspended. He does lose points and he does lose money from that Indian Wells tournament, but nothing really here as of late. So again, you can't look, I guess, too far into it because that test was so far away. Tests have been cleaned since then. But nonetheless, Sinner, hell of a player, hell of a year that he's having. Absolutely going to be right in the mix of things. You would make the case he's the favorite. Going to be interesting to see how his mental state of mind is after that positive test, with the news coming out at the time that it did. All right, next guy I want to talk about on the list, and I have him high up on this list to talk about. Might be a surprise that he's so high up, and that's Daniil Medvedev. Medvedev, very consistent player, and he's very good on the hard courts. He's won a U.S. Open before. His only major championship is a U.S. Open title. He's also made the final here at the U.S. Open several times, including last year's final. I remember last year beating Carlos Alcaraz at the U.S. Open. He made the Australian Open final earlier in the year. Do not sleep on Daniil Medvedev in this tournament, telling everybody right now. Now, next guy, also having a fantastic 2024, but then at the Cincinnati Open, looked a little rough, and that is Carlos Alcaraz. Alcaraz, guys, don't look too far into that Cincinnati Open there. He even admitted probably the worst match ever in his career. It just did not look good, but I mean, the guy's been playing so good as of late, winning the French Open this year, winning Wimbledon this year, making it to an Olympic final. He does have hard court wins throughout the course of the year. He won this year's Indian Wells championship. So Alcaraz, guys, going to be right in the mix of things. And this stellar year for Alcaraz, I expect to continue. I expect him to go very far in this year's tournament. Also, another guy having a very good 2024 is Alexander Zverev. Zverev, you guys know what he's accomplished so far this year. He makes the Australian Open semis. He makes the French Open finals, goes 5 sets with Alcaraz. He makes the semis at Cincinnati this year. He wins the Italian Open earlier in the year. He's been playing very well here in 2024. Eventually, he's going to, I think, sneak a championship in here. He's way too talented of a player, and he made a U.S. Open final before in his career. Again, another guy that's going to be very much in contention, one of the favorites here in this year's U.S. Open. And now, guys, last but not least, the defending 2023 U.S. Open champion, this year's defending champion in 2024, Novak Djokovic. Djokovic, interesting year, right, guys? Definitely not good by his standards, but hey, momentum all on his side, winning this year's Olympic gold medal, that one thing missing in his career. The big thing with Djokovic, I would say with that momentum, I could have put him up higher on this favorites list, but we didn't see him in any hard court action. He taken that all off up to this U.S. Open after being in those Olympic Games. We know that his knee's been banged up as of late. So a lot of parity here for Novak Djokovic in this year's U.S. Open. But again, we just saw what he did at the Olympic Games. I think that Novak Djokovic absolutely should be in the mix of things here at this year's U.S. Open. So that was your favorites to claim this year's U.S. Open championship. One of these guys will win it. I'm telling you right now, I will have my official prediction coming up over the weekend, so make sure you guys are keeping an eye out for that right here on this YouTube channel.